who will run my country for the next 5 years. And for that, I need to vote. So I pledge to vote, and I encourage all my family members, all my colleagues at Hyundai Motor India, and of course, all the citizens of my great country to go ahead and vote. Vote now and vote forever.
दुनिया के सबसे बड़े लोकतंत्र
You are watching The World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has called a July 4th general election a surprise move that gambles his premiership on recent positive economic news, despite his Conservative Party trailing Labour by 20 points in the polls. 60 Indian nationals who were victims of fraudulent jobs have now been repatriated from Cambodia. Chip-making equipment supplier ASML reportedly has the means to remotely disable its advanced machinery in the hands of TSMC should China invade Taiwan. This as tensions are high between mainland China and Taiwan, which Beijing regards as a rogue province that it has threatened to reclaim by force. A Bangladesh MP, Anwar ul Azim, who travelled to Kolkata for medical treatment, is missing and has most likely been murdered, a senior Bengal police officer has informed NDTV. Wall Street Journal owner News Corp struck a major content licensing pact with the generative artificial intelligence company Open AI, aiming to cash in on a technology that promises to have a profound impact on the news publishing industry. Well, a big focus. Rishi Sunak has called a surprise general election for the 4th of July in a high-stakes gamble that will see Keir Starmer try to win power for Labour after 14 years of Conservative-led government. Now, in some ways, many argue that for Rishi Sunak, the equation was simple. When you've had as much bad news as the British Prime Minister in recent months, you'll take anything in the way of good fortune. There are some signs of light at the end of the economic tunnel. The long-awaited passage of his flagship Rwanda immigration scheme, the prospect of a feel-good soccer tournament on the horizon, and some sunnier weather. Well, some experts argue that it must have felt to Sunak that if he waited any longer, to coin a phrase, things could only get worse. Nonetheless, the decision came as a shock to Westminster and much of the UK at large, where the assumption had been that the Prime Minister would hang on until the fall, allowing him the comfort, should he lose, of going down in history books as having racked up a respectable 2 years in number 10 Downing Street. However, it could be a risky strategy. The Tories are actually 20 points behind the opposition Labour Party in the polls. But with the element of surprise, one of the chief advantages remaining to a UK government facing a tricky election, it seems Sunak has decided to gamble on the theory that the outlook would never be better than this summer to face voters. We have political reactions lined up for you, along with reactions from voters in the UK and Ollie Barrett's ground report from London. Listen into the finer details.
Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future, to decide whether we want to build on the progress we have made or risk going back to square one with no plan and no certainty. Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I guess he's just doing it because he wants an early summer holiday because he knows he's going to lose, or he thinks it's a better time to win, if there is one.
On the 4th of July, you have the choice. And together, we can stop the chaos, we can turn the page, we can start to rebuild Britain and change our country.
The starting gun has been fired on the UK election campaign. Rishi Sunak confirming on the streets on the street outside Downing Street that July the 4th will be the date that Britain goes to the polls. This was something of a surprise. Most analysts had been expecting that the general election would be called in November or perhaps October. The Prime Minister insisting that the economy is improving, that issues around migration and the National Health Service are being dealt with as well. He says life in the UK is beginning to improve again after a difficult period of a cost of living crisis, the energy price spike, COVID-19 pandemic and the furlough scheme before that. He will point to his successes in office. The opposition Labour Party will say many of the problems that Britain has been facing are a direct result of Conservative government economic policies. Labour say it's time for a change. Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, Rishi Sunak, the leader of the Conservatives, all the other parties and their party leaders as well will now begin crisscrossing the country, making their case to the British people ahead of that vote on July the 4th. Ollie Barrett, NDTV, London.
Crucial news. ASML Holding and Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company have ways to disable the world's most sophisticated chip-making machines in the event that China invades Taiwan. This is what Bloomberg is reporting. Now, the remote shut-off applies to Netherlands-based ASML's line of extreme ultraviolet machines, known within the industry as EUVs, for which TSMC is its single biggest client. Now, this Bloomberg report adds that officials from the US government have privately expressed concerns to both their Dutch and Taiwanese counterparts about what happens if Chinese aggression escalates into an attack on the island, which is actually responsible for producing the vast majority of the world's advanced semiconductors. The Netherlands prohibits the company from selling EUVs to China, for instance, because of US fears they could lend its rival an edge in the global chip war. But crucial to note that the US sources the majority of its chips from the island of Taiwan. The stakes are high, with around 90% of the world's most advanced chips made in Taiwan. But joining us for further clarity, China strategist Andrew Leung. Thank you so much, Mr. Leung, for making time for us. You know, interestingly, just about 12 hours ago, Global Times, which is affiliated to the Communist Party in China, has explicitly quoted observers to say that a fear-mongering campaign by US politicians and media outlets about ASML's ability to disable the advanced chip-making machines of TSMC has actually laid bare Washington's despicable mentality. And in fact, Andrew, the Global Times article adds that Washington uses Taiwan as a pawn. Is this threatening rhetoric? Is it doomed to backfire? And for who?
First of all, there are key dimensions on this issue. First of all, the ASML and TSMC, although they are holding the bottlenecks, very critical bottlenecks of the high-end nano-type semiconductor chips, but that's not the be-all and end-all of the game. Because if we look at Huawei, which is, of course, subject to severe sanctions and pushback, managed to produce an iPhone rivaling some of the latest Apple phones using a kind of modified technology, which can achieve more or less even higher in some respects,
yes,
kind of resolution and receptivity. But on the other hand, to think that only this bottleneck will stifle China's technological rise is unrealistic. You look at the example of the International Space Station, started by the United States many years ago, which excluded China from the very start, even though they partner with Russia. But look at what China is now, as able to build its own International Space Station from scratch. And not only that, China is the only country on Earth which has been able to send a robotic probe to the back of the moon. No other countries is able to do that so far. This is informed by the China's technological rise, built on its huge technological manpower. According to the latest research of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, ASPI, which came out only about a couple of months ago, of the world's leading 44 cutting-edge technologies, China has been found leading in 37 of them, according to their year-long research looking at PhD, that's the doctorate level, peer-reviewed papers around the world, over 2 million pieces of research, and they found that China is leading in a significant proportion of the technologies, although not in all, but sufficient to sustain China's technological rise, because China's PhD manpower is multiple times that of the United States. You look at the PhD manpower, which is called STEM, STEM, science, technology, and engineering and mathematics, is multiple times the size of the United States.
Right.
Now, coming back to Taiwan, of course, China has published several white papers so far. The latest coincided with Nancy Pelosi's visit, all stressing the preference for peaceful unification. Now, of course, most of the Taiwanese do not want unification, but most of the Taiwanese do not want independence, because they want to prolong the status quo. But on the other hand, the two places, Taiwan on the mainland, are increasingly intertwined. If we look at now, Taiwan's economy is still largely dependent on China. And then there are so many areas that both peoples are have come face to face or working together. You look at a lot of the latest commercial films coming out of China. You see Taiwanese directors, Taiwanese actors, and then of course the visitors, and they are visiting each other. So that's not the end of the road. And so the rhetoric that China would invade Taiwan is a kind of overhype.
Right, well, Chinese observers have warned that while the disabling technology is feasible from a technical perspective, that it is a dangerous remark that could take a heavy toll on the reputation of the two companies. But more importantly, if those threats translate into actions, China argues that it is likely to paralyze the US high-tech industry rather than having a crippling effect on the progress of China's semiconductor industry. But thank you, as always, Andrew Leung, for joining us with deeper insight. In other news, a Bangladesh MP who travelled to Kolkata for medical treatment is missing and has most likely been murdered. This is what a senior Bengal police officer has informed NDTV. And Anwarul Azim Anar, a member of the ruling Awami League, was actually last seen at a high-end housing complex in the Newtown area. His phone has been switched off as per the details shared by the authorities. But sources have informed us that an initial sweep of an apartment in the complex found blood stains, leading to the speculation that he was killed there and that his body may have been dismembered before being dumped in nearby areas.
The Indian Embassy in Cambodia announced that it had rescued 60 nationals who were victims of fraudulent employment practices in the foreign nation. These individuals were recently transferred to the Cambodian city of Phnom Penh today with assistance from the embassy for travel documents and other arrangements to facilitate their return to home. These Indians were rescued by authorities from a place called Jinbi on May 20th. The operation was carried out in coordination with authorities, and this development follows a day after the Andhra Pradesh police reported that approximately 300 Indians...
A shocking disappearance and suspected murder of a Bangladesh Member of Parliament, Anwarul Azim Anar, in Kolkata after he arrived earlier this month. Police say he may have been murdered at this high-end housing complex on the outskirts of Kolkata.
उनके एक जान पहचान के मिस्टर गोपाल विश्वास हैं 12 नगर के, उन्होंने एक मिसिंग डायरी कराई 12 नगर में, जिसके बेसिस पे बैरकपुर पुलिस कमिश्नरेट ने एक एसआईटी गठित की और उसके बाद 22 तारीख को आज हम लोग को एक इनपुट मिला कि उनका शायद मर्डर कर दिया गया है। तो हम लोग इन द मीन टाइम लोकल पुलिस ने ट्रेस आउट किया है जो लोकेशन लास्ट जहाँ पे वो देखे थे फ्लैट में, और उसके बाद ये केस जो है सीआईडी ने लिया है इन्वेस्टिगेशन के लिए।
Blood spots in a flat are now being studied by the forensic team, while the police refuse to reveal anything about a possible motive.
अभी हम लोग क्या नाम है इन्वेस्टिगेशन कर रहे हैं, टीम गई हुई है फॉरेंसिक की, वो देख रही है।
ये फ्लैट किसका था? कौन रह रहे थे इस फ्लैट में?
ये फ्लैट एक मिस्टर संदीप का है। उन्होंने वो एम्प्लॉई हैं एक्साइज डिपार्टमेंट में, और उन्होंने किराए पे दिया था वन मिस्टर अख्तरुज्जमान को,
वो क्या फॉरेन
जो कि
नेशनल
यूएस नेशनल है।
The Bangladesh Home Minister in a press conference confirmed that Indian authorities have informed them that the Awami League MP had been murdered and it is a pre-planned murder. The Dhaka police have made 3 arrests in the case based on inputs provided to them.
ভারতীয় পুলিশ জানিয়েছেন যে তিনি খুন হয়েছেন। তা আমরা ইতিমধ্যেই তাদের যে তথ্য ভারতীয় পুলিশ আমাদেরকে দিয়েছিলেন সেই তথ্য অনুযায়ী আমাদের পুলিশ, বাংলাদেশের পুলিশ এদের তথ্য অনুযায়ী তাদেরকে যারা খুন করেছেন কিংবা খুনের সঙ্গে সম্পৃক্ত ছিলেন আমরা যারা সন্দেহ করছি এবং তাদের থেকে যা আমরা তথ্য পেয়েছিলাম সেই তথ্য অনুযায়ী তাদের মধ্যে থেকে আমরা 3 জন অপরাধীকে আমরা আমাদের পুলিশ ধরেছেন।
Several angles, including the motive, are being probed in this sensational murder case, and there is a suspicion that the member of parliament from Bangladesh was seen here last and his body may have been dismembered in an apartment in this building complex. But the primary focus of the investigation still remains on locating his body, because that would mean a significant step forward in this ongoing investigation, which the police are treating as a murder case. With camera person GD Shankar in Newtown, Kolkata, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Well, let's switch tracks now. Indian authorities have rescued 60 Indians fraudulently taken to Cambodia and forced into cyber fraud by trafficking rackets. This actually comes after around 150 Indians protested in Cambodia to get their passports back from their handlers in order to return home. Now, according to the police, 150 people from Visakhapatnam and nearby areas are stuck in Cambodia for over a year now and are being forced to commit cyber crimes and Ponzi frauds. These people were reportedly lured with offers of jobs, such as data entry operators in Singapore, but were actually taken to Cambodia and forced into committing cyber scams by Chinese handlers. According to the Visakhapatnam Police Commissioner, around 5,000 people from across India are trapped in Cambodia in inhumane conditions. Mohammad Ghazali breaks down the details for you.
The Indian Embassy in Cambodia announced that it had rescued 60 nationals who were victims of fraudulent employment practices in the foreign nation. These individuals were recently transferred to the Cambodian city of Phnom Penh today with assistance from the embassy for travel documents and other arrangements to facilitate their return to home. These Indians were rescued by authorities from a place called Jinbi on May 20th. The operation was carried out in coordination with authorities, and this development follows a day after the Andhra Pradesh police reported that approximately 300 Indians staged a revolt against their handlers in Cambodia on May 20th, resulting in many arrests. Visakhapatnam Police Commissioner A. Ravishankar noted that these trafficked Indians caused large-scale riots in Jinbi and compound, which is allegedly a hub for cybercrime. Now, what is the cyber work scam in Cambodia? The fake job scam in Cambodia involved allegedly deceiving Indian nationals with promises of legitimate employment opportunities, typically in data entry or similar roles. However, upon arrival in Cambodia, the victims are coerced into participating in illegal cyber activities such as creating fake social media profiles and engaging in fraudulent schemes to scam unsuspecting individuals. The victims are subjected to exploitation with threats of withholding basic necessities like food and accommodation if they fail to meet targets set by the perpetrators. Over 5,000 Indian nationals have been discovered to be held against their will in Cambodia, where they are being forced into participating in online scams targeting people in India. These scams have amassed a staggering rupees 500 crore over the last 6 months. India and Cambodia are now working together to tackle this problem. Now, when was Cambodia's fake job scam discovered? The issue came to light after the Rourkela police in Odisha dismantled a cybercrime syndicate on December 30 last year, which led to the arrest of 8 individuals allegedly involved in trafficking people to Cambodia. And it is not just Cambodia, but there are other countries where people have been duped or these scams have been reported from.
Right, for a quick comment from Ground Zero, we have with us publisher of Long Mekong Media, Dr. Digby James Ren. Thank you so much for joining us on the World 24/7. Now, Indian officials have said on record that nearly half of financial frauds targeting Indians are actually originating from 3 Southeast Asian countries, Cambodia, Myanmar and Laos. And many web applications actually used to commit the frauds are written in Chinese languages, thereby not ruling out the Chinese link?
Well, look, the transnational crime is a very serious problem, and this is not new. I mean, it's not as if this has been just started last week or anything like that. And yes, of course, we all know that there's problems in Myanmar, and Cambodia has had problems over the last few years. But the connections that you discuss about China, I mean, Sihanoukville has a lot of investment from Chinese companies. And that's, you know, the Sihanoukville is a booming little hub now for manufacturing and export and tourism and so forth. And of course, what this story tells us is that the detection and identification of these scams is improving. And that's because India and Cambodia are cooperating much more now than they have in the past. And so what we've seen is that lots of these scams are being closed down, and that is really a testament to much better relations between India and Cambodia in attempts to control these things.
Well, let's hope that the rest of the Indians who are currently there with unauthorized agents under their purview, they return home safely. But thank you so much, Dr. Ren, for joining us with that quick comment.
Thank you.
As always, news and updates continue on the World 24/7. We're taking a very quick break for now.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Elections क्या हैं?
Election is basically a reality TV show जिससे बिग बॉस चुना जाता है. The biggest festival of democracy.
मिला है मिला.
हमारी आवाज.
Youth की आवाज. They make hashtags become a voting trend. They communicate their political views with memes. They turn their real ideas into reels. Youth makes elections a lot more fun, and we have just the right election shows for them. As India goes for its 18th general elections, join me, Arun Singh, for 18 Ka Vote only on NDTV. First-time voters, share your hopes and expectations from the leaders in the form of a video message. We'll feature select videos on NDTV.
36 lakh farmer families affiliated with Amul across 18,600 villages of Gujarat have pledged to vote with their families during these elections. I would also urge you to take this pledge and vote as a part of the democratic process of our country.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code. And driverless cars.
Welcome back. Well, News Corp, the Murdoch-owned empire of publications like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post, announced that it had agreed to a deal with OpenAI to share its content to train and service artificial intelligence chatbots. News Corp said the multi-year agreement would allow OpenAI to use current and archived news content from News Corp's major news outlets, including brands in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia as well. But this agreement does not include content from News Corp's other businesses, such as its digital real estate services or even HarperCollins. And let's turn our attention now to the political playground in the United States. Well, does it seem likely that the US will have another Trump term? And what is the best case or the worst case scenario from the American perspective and for the rest of the world. Well, here's what American political scientist and global political risk consultant Ian Bremmer told NDTV.
Does it seem likely that you are maybe going to have another Trump term? What is the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario from the American perspective and for the rest of the world?
Well, we're 5 months away from the election in the United States. I mean, I can tell you who's going to win the Russian election in 5 months. That's not very hard. I have no idea in the United States. It's a very long time, and the U.S. is still a democracy. It's also very close. Today, Trump has an advantage, a small advantage, probably 60-40 Trump, but I have very low confidence in that projection. What I do have confidence in is that Americans increasingly don't trust the outcome. The United States is the only advanced industrial democracy today that is incapable of actually holding a free and fair election that is seen as legitimate by the whole population. Canada can do it. The UK, even after Brexit, can do it. France, even Italy, Japan, no problem. The United States cannot. U.S. democracy is in crisis, and Americans think that their political opponents domestically are trying to destroy their democracy. That's a serious problem. So whoever wins, there's going to be more anger, more polarization, more dysfunction, and probably more violence in the United States. That's not civil war, right? It's not a dictatorship, but it is the continued erosion of the most powerful country's democracy in the world. And if you are another country that views the United States as an important partner, your ability to predict how consistent the U.S. will be in its commitments to you is going to get more challenging. If you're an enemy of the United States, the room for operating in a more chaotic environment where the U.S. isn't a consistent leader is an opportunity for you. So that's the big challenge that we see with, yes, the most important U.S. election in a very, very long time.
Do you think the biggest question perhaps is, are these really our only choices? For both leaders on both sides, I mean, in terms of their capabilities, in terms of how old they are, in terms of what they represent. Do you think that's also a question in America right now?
Well, I mean, it is, again, 5 months away. These are very old men. I mean, one of them could have a major health issue in the next 5 months. We're not sure still that this is the only choice that's going. I mean, unless there's a health incident, it's going to be Biden and Trump, and they're historically unpopular leaders. Unpopular because Biden is so old, unpopular because Trump is so unfit, unpopular also because the U.S. is so polarized that nobody can do well with both sides of the political spectrum. But unfortunately, this is the election that the United States is facing, and people are going to be very, very dissatisfied with either outcome. That's what we're looking at.
The 2024 Lok Sabha polls are crucial for the future of this country. Having covered elections for 35 years, I hope to cut through the cacophony of a long, hot summer campaign and help to understand and decode the issues, the challenges, and finally, the outcome.